Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to today's episode of Real Talk. It's Lucas here, and I hope that today's episode informs and inspires you to have your own real conversations. As always, today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Trivan, maker of trucks, trailers, and enclosure buildings tailored to your needs. Be sure to check them out at trivan.com. A huge thanks to them for sponsoring the show and making it possible. One other quick note before we get into today's episode is that if you are willing and able, if you could leave a review, preferably a 5-star one, on any of the podcast networks or platforms that allow for it, such as Spotify or Apple Podcasts, that will be much appreciated as it helps get the word out there and lets people know what we're all about. So, with that in mind, on to the episode. Welcome back, everybody, to the Real Talk podcast. We have a great guest today, Dr. John Tweeddale from Reformation Bible College in Sanford, Florida. Welcome to the program. I appreciate your time. I thought I'd just give a brief bio. You're the John Tweeddale is the VP, or I guess the Dean of Academics at at RBC. Which is the Reformation Bible College up here in Canada. That actually stands for Royal Bank of Canada. But
I am not the Vice President of the Royal Bank of Canada.
We might put that in the title just because you get a lot of clicks. But and then you're also a professor of theology there. So having been a teaching elder and a pastor, I guess, in several PCA churches in the States, and got your I guess your MDiv from Jackson, Mississippi, in the Reformed Theological Seminary, which is actually interesting. We just had Dr. Guy Waters on the podcast from he teaches there. So
that's great. We're actually having Dr. Waters on campus tomorrow as well.
Oh yeah, right on. Yeah, we had a great conversation on Lord's Supper, and he's had some great work there. And then I see Keith Matheson, somebody we referenced in there, and he's actually on your staff. So that's
right. Yes. Keith has been the one faculty member who's been here since the very beginning.
Oh, wow. I have a big book on Lord's Supper on my coffee table from him. And R.C. Sproul spoke highly of that book. And I got to tell you, it's heavy. So I'm not all the way through it yet. But
it is a heavy book.
Yeah. So anyways, why don't you introduce yourself and a little bit of your background and how you ended up at RBC, and then maybe like in your current role as dean there.
Yeah, thank you, Tyler. It's just a joy to meet you as well as be with you today and to talk to you and to your listeners about a place that I love very much at Reformation Bible College. In terms of myself, I often tell my students, first and foremost, I am a Christian. I am a follower of the Lord Jesus Christ, and my relationship with Christ defines everything I do. Next to being a Christian, I am a proud and happy husband to Angela. We've been married for 20 years. We actually met at Reformed Theological Seminary in Jackson, Mississippi. And then we have 3 kids, Amelia, Knox, and Evelyn. So I love being a dad to them. And then next to that, I'm a minister of the gospel. I serve as a teaching elder in the Presbyterian Church in America. And before coming down to RBC, I taught at Reformed Presbyterian Theological Seminary, while I was also the senior pastor of a PCA church in Pittsburgh. After being a minister, I have the joy of being the VP of Academics and Professor of Theology here at RBC. That just basically means I'm an academic shepherd. My job is to oversee academic life, to give support to our faculty, serve the president in kind of overseeing our classroom and our curriculum, and then giving as much support and care as I can to our students. And so it's just a great joy of mine to really be in the business of kind of theological education as a form of discipleship and investing in the students God brings us here at RBC.
Wow. Yeah, that's quite the resume. So appreciate you being with us and helping us understand the school there. So a bit of context, I guess, for our listeners. So Mariah, our producer, I think that our avid listeners would have seen her face on the podcast before. So she actually attends RBC in Florida. She moved down there last year, I believe, and has been studying an undergrad in we'll get more into the course, but
at RBC. So she connected us, and yeah, she's kind of in love with the school down there. So I guess
She was in one of my classes, I think it was maybe a week or two ago, and she came up to me afterwards and said, "Hey, do you mind if I connect you to Tyler? And would you be willing to come talk about the college?" So yes, we have Mariah to thank for this podcast today.
Yeah, that's great. So and she speaks highly of the school and of all the leadership there. So yeah, why don't you give us a little overview? Like how big is the school? What's the goal, mission, vision? Why does it exist?
Great. No, thank you all very much. So Reformation Bible College is tied to the ministry of the late R.C. Sproul and Ligonier Ministries. So Ligonier Ministries was founded in 1971 by R.C. Sproul, who was an American kind of Reformed theologian. And Ligonier was in the western part of Pennsylvania. It was a place, and he had a study center. This was the era of Francis Schaeffer and Labrie, and Ligonier was in that mold. It was a place in western Pennsylvania where people came to receive biblical instruction from Dr. Sproul and also receive kind of questions to their or answers to their questions. So at the very beginning, Ligonier was a place for theological discipleship. And then over the years, it expanded and today has a global reach. Well, towards the end of Dr. Sproul's ministry, he wanted to return to that sense of place so that Ligonier has a location where people with questions come to receive thoughtful biblical answers. And so after the 500th anniversary of Calvin's birth in 2009, Dr. Sproul was in Geneva and saw the academy that Calvin founded in Geneva and thought through the implications of that academy, and so gave birth to a vision of starting a Bible college and kind of coming full circle with his ministry so that Ligonier once again would not just be a national and global discipleship ministry, but would be a place where people could receive theological education. So in 2011, RBC, Reformation Bible College, opened its doors with an undergraduate theological college founded by R.C. Sproul. We had 27 students, and now today, as we've entered into our teenage years, of 13 years old as a college, we have now 227 students, that is
Wow.
on our campus, and then just about 150 students online. So
Wow.
you can tally that up, somewhere around 375 students receive an undergraduate theological education here at RBC. And we exist as a college really in many ways to be faithful to the Word of God as it's summarized in our Reformed confessions so that our students will know and love and serve God in all of life. And so that, in a nutshell, is kind of the origin and story of RBC.
Wow. Yeah, that goes back a ways. It's a cool history. So how is what RBC does as a Bible college different than what, say, like a Christian university would do? I mean, we've had we've talked to several different organizations and universities who teach, I guess, more liberal arts education with different degrees and stuff. What's RBC's goal in that respect?
Right. Well, the liberal arts movement in kind of Christian colleges and Christian universities has really been a response to, perhaps the downcline of secular colleges and universities. And so it's a Christian alternative where you've got Christian colleges and Christian universities having a liberal arts perspective, a Christian worldview, and really equipping people for all kind of careers and vocations, whether that be in, English or engineering and kind of everything in between. RBC is self-consciously a Bible college, but we're a Bible college in the Reformed tradition. And as a result, we simply do one thing. We teach theology for undergraduates. So rather than having 10 or 100 different degrees, we basically offer only one degree, and that's in theology. Now, our theology students study the Bible, study systematic theology, and then they do so in a context of the liberal arts tradition, studying literature, philosophy, and history. But the whole goal is for a theological education. Now, we have different levels of study that our students can pursue, but it's still the same. We're really interested in theological education.
Right. So, I guess speak to the undergraduate idea. So it's I don't know if it's terribly common for someone to pursue a undergraduate in theology. A lot of times we're pushed into engineering or things where that lead to a specific career path like nursing or something like that. Why might somebody like pursue an undergraduate?
Yeah, thanks. That's a great question. And there's a couple of ways to answer that. With the decline of higher ed, and there's a lot of reasons for that, you often get, a couple answers on how to move forward in higher ed. Some will be on the liberal arts side and say we need to retrieve liberal arts to recover Western civilization. Others will say, no, we have to forge ahead with the STEM disciplines to keep up with the technological revolution. And in some ways, that's a false juxtaposition because we would want people going into liberal arts and we would want people going into the STEM fields who are Christian and who are good, faithful witnesses of Christ in those domains or spheres of life. But there is need for a third alternative that kind of rises above both of those and provides a theological vision for life and ministry in a modern world. And that really is what RBC is trying to do. So often people think of theological education in terms of professional training for, say, gospel ministry. And you see that in graduate school training at most seminaries. So people think, okay, if I'm going to do pulpit work, I'm going to do theological education. And so you can focus on the supply side of economics, where seminaries train professional ministers for gospel ministry. But we're trying to focus less on the pulpit and more on the pew. You might think of that as the kind of demand side on the economic equation here. We want to flood churches with theologically mindful and educated Christians, some of whom may go and fill pulpits, but these others will have a foundation for life to be able to pursue a variety of other disciplines that are kind of related to Christian studies. So we're trying to provide a foundation for individuals who want to, have a Christian education and then serve in a variety of ways, such as education or missions, or maybe they have an interest in kind of business and entrepreneur ideas, and they want to have a Christian foundation for that. So we're trying to look at this foundational level and how do we equip ordinary Christians to represent God in whatever calling he's placed on their life.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of times if you hear young people who are unsure about what to do with their life coming out of high school and post-secondary education, and a lot of times they default to history degree, English degree, and they get some basis for how to think about the world, but a lot of times it's a secular basis, and it seems to me like just a Bible, like an undergraduate in theology is, I guess it leaves you with a real base to build off of, right?
That's right. And then you can go and specialize later at that graduate level, but a need to have that foundation kind of in the Reformed classical tradition here.
Right.
So some of our students do come and we have something of a gap year experience. So we offer a 1-year certificate that can be done online or on campus. It's a 24 credit certificate in theology. And many people treat that as a gap year. So they finished their high school. They're not sure what they want to do in university, but they know they need a good Bible foundation. So they'll come here for 1 year, and then they'll go to whatever college or university they want to do for their own vocational training. Others come here for 2 years. We have an associate's degree, so you can come here and do a 2-year and do something similar, and then transfer to another college or university. Or if you already have a associate's degree, a 2-year degree, you can come and finish out your bachelor's degree here at RBC. And then finally, our flagship program is our 4-year Bachelor of Arts in Theology, our BAT. And those students typically kind of fall on one of two tracks. One is a Christian thought program that really does emphasize literature, history, philosophy, theology. And many of those individuals go on to do things like Christian education, and they have a much broader sense of calling. The other track we have is biblical studies. And that's oftentimes seen as a pre-seminary track where students are interested in the pastorate or in full-time Christian work, want to get their Hebrew, want to get their Greek, and then leave RBC and go to seminary. And that kind of biblical studies track is often for them.
Right. Yeah. Is that, well, what kind of courses are involved in these? I guess through the whole spread, I guess that you mentioned, like, so
Sure.
I guess maybe let's focus on the 1 year, because I'm curious about like what kind of experience somebody would get if they did a gap year.
Yeah, sure.
Obviously there's a suite if they show up for 4, but what
so
kind of courses?
we try to think about a core experience. Obviously, we want to give them exposure to God's word, but we want to help them interpret it. So they begin with a hermeneutics class that helps people rightly divide the word of God, gives them skills for biblical interpretation. And then out of that, we do 2 courses of biblical theology. One course in kind of Old Testament biblical theology, and the other in New Testament biblical theology, so that you look at the promises of God that are given in the Old Covenant and the promises of God that are fulfilled in Christ in the New Covenant. And so helps individuals read all of Scripture in light of the person and work of Christ. So in the Reformed tradition, we very much speak of the redemptive historical method of biblical interpretation, and our students will get exposure to that redemptive historical approach in BT1 and BT2, as we affectionately call it. Then to also flesh some of those things out historically and theologically, our students will take 2 courses in history. One will track the development of the church in the early and medieval periods, and then the other will look at the development of the church from the Reformation to the present. Then we offer a course in communication because we want our students to develop soft skills in order to articulate the principles of God's word in whatever context they're in. So in that class, students will walk through methods of basic logic, as well as writing skills, and then also oral communication skills. And then you do take a course in apologetics that give you practical kind of skills in interacting with various objections to the Christian faith. And then we do give some students some electives if they're wanting to take more philosophy or theology or Bible. So that's the kind of spine. We do have some core courses, and then we also give students some flexibility, and the outcome is 24 credits in theology. And all of that can be then transferred into one of our other programs, or you've got a credential that you can go do something else.
Yeah, oh wow, that's great. Yeah, the reason I kind of curious about that is because a lot of times, especially like high school kids, you get a lot of teaching and catechizing, I guess, in the church, if you're part of the church, in what to believe and what and how to interpret or into a certain way, but not a lot of like theology, hermeneutic, like how to think about
Right.
It's so that to me is something that could be really valuable for even the communication course you mentioned, learning how to create arguments, how to think logically, and those are definitely transferable skills. And if taught, I mean, you can learn them from Shakespeare, but a lot better places to learn them from the Bible. So from a theological course. So yeah,
and we actually do offer
really
a class in Shakespeare as well. But yeah, that's it. Though we often say this, that we want to think well, write well, and speak well. And that the gospel and theology gives us a framework for doing each one of those things.
Yeah, that's I mean, you can definitely see the value. So going out from there, if people decide to stick around, what kind of streams? You mentioned the Christian thought versus like more I guess more of a seminary focused or
Hmm.
I guess that's more like languages and things.
That's
Um,
right. So, say the Christian thought, you're going to have opportunity to take more courses in theology. Now, we offer 7 courses in systematic theology, so you can take one for every loci or topic. So you can start with the doctrine of Scripture and Revelation. Then you can study, the cornerstone of all theology and the doctrine of God, and then work through the, theological anthropology. What does it mean to be human and created in the image of God? Out of that, you see your need for Christ, and we work through Christology and the person and work of Christ. Then we have a course on the work of the Holy Spirit in salvation in particular. A church which actually I was just teaching this morning on ecclesiology and the sacraments. And then we have a
Wow.
theology course in systematic theology. So whether you're in Christian thought or biblical studies, you can take those 7 systematic theology courses. But if you're in the Christian thought, you will do additional kind of historical theology courses that are focused on primary sources. And so you're reading Augustine, you're reading Calvin, you're reading Owen, you're reading some modern theologians, and it helps you to kind of engage primary materials. You've got courses in philosophy, where we kind of trace the development of Western thought in particular. And then we do have a spine of great works courses. So these are primary source, basically literature courses, but also architecture and music, where you're going from kind of ancient text to the modern world, looking at literature courses. Then you can specialize even further with the Christian Thought program by doing a minor in what we call Reformed Classical Education. So you can take a course in Christian education, in pedagogy, in ancient history, and also in teaching. And you get practical internship experiences. And then you also do Latin in that program. And so it really is a great program that sets people up for kind of teaching in that classical Christian school environment. So it's Bible, theology, history, literature, philosophy, with some Latin and classical education mixed in.
Wow, it's quite the spread. That makes, I mean, that can make any Christian want to study.
I think so.
There's something there for everybody, I guess.
Well, we want our students to end their time at RBC with a greater love for God than when they started. I mean, that really is the goal. We want to help produce faithful Christians, knowledgeable, articulate Christians who embrace God and His holiness. We really do want to inspire our students to live faithful lives unto the Lord.
Right. Yeah. So you've said it, like, so RBC is different than like a seminary in that it's teaching an undergraduate and students who aren't necessarily going to be on the pulpit or in ministry in that way. And also, I'm curious how it's unique in that it's different than a Christian Bible course. Like, so I had I mean, I went to a secular university in Hamilton, McMaster, and I took Bible courses there. I actually quite enjoyed them. They were quite, I wouldn't say they were reformed, but they were quite decently Christian for a secular university. But if I were to attend a Christian university and do their Bible courses, I'm sure they have some that are similar to what you're describing. What's the difference? Like, why is it unique to come to RBC?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we view our approach to theological education as a form of discipleship. So we actually are concerned with the formation of our students. And so it's not as if you're coming into a Christian university and you've got, let's say, 12 credits which are focused on the Bible, or maybe 24 credits that are focused on the Bible. Literally every single course is focused on the teaching of God's word and its application in the student's life. We are intentionally small. We are not trying to be all things to all people. We're not trying to proliferate degrees. There are wonderful Christian liberal arts colleges and universities that people can go if they want to get a Christian perspective on, let's say, engineering or economics. That's a wonderful thing to do. but we really try to focus on a small group of people. If you do the equivalent of full-time students, we might want to be somewhere around 225 or so, 250 students. And that's intentionally small. We're not trying to be much bigger than that. And we've got a dedicated group of mentors in the staff and faculty, and they're investing in our students in the classroom, but also outside the classroom. So just about everything we do, from teaching to student care, is designed for the formation of Christians. We want these students to grow in their love for God and Jesus Christ. So I think in probably the intensity and the consistency of our curriculum, it does distinguish it from other Christian liberal arts institutions.
Yeah, well, yeah, the intentionally small idea is different than most other places, right? And so you wouldn't get the same mentorship. Or I mean, I was chatting with Mariah this morning. She says she sees you walking around at a coffee shop, and like the intimacy of that situation is different than like I would see, like, you'd see in a big public university, and yeah, probably most likely in a lot of larger seminaries even.
Yeah, that's right. So just before this meeting, I was just on the other side to my left here in a conference room, and we were meeting with the faculty, and we were literally just talking through students' issues and praying for our students. We had one of our students in our class whose mother just passed away, and we gathered together and prayed for our student. We have an exceptional student care team, and the way we think about student care is even a little bit different. It's very intentional. All of our on-campus students are filtered into what we call our house system. Our house system is also inspired by the great theologians. So we've got Luther House and Calvin House and Edwards House and Spurgeon House. And there, all students are funneled into one of those four houses. They've got student care, they have service opportunities, they have healthy, spirited competition. And so it's just a way for us to create an environment where every student receives care and support and discipleship. There's high touch points with both staff and faculty. So the whole thing is designed to create an atmosphere where students are seen and known and taught and cared for and discipled as they interact with each other, as well as interact with staff and faculty.
Yeah, that's good to know. That's one of those things that, especially as Canadians, like if you're going to do that, or if a parent is going to allow their kid or help their kid to move to Florida to join this the campus, it's one of those things that's good to have a picture of, be able to see what that student life is like. So do most of the students on who learn on campus, do they live on campus or live in quarters there?
So we have residence hall here, and they're basically in suite, where you've got a living room and a shared kitchen, and then you've got four basically private rooms and bathrooms. And so that is available to students who qualify and are able to live on campus. And then if it doesn't work out for a student to be on campus, we've got connections with area apartment complexes within a mile of RBC. So most of the students either live on campus or within a mile of campus, and it's a very tight-knit community because of that.
Oh wow, yeah, that sounds like a good place to be, or a safe place to be.
I hope so. Yes, I think so.
Yeah. So before we move on, I want to ask you about your online courses, but before I ask you about that, I was reflecting on you. So you mentioned that RBC is intentionally small, and Mariah actually mentioned that it's not an accredited school, so you're not giving out. I guess, well, maybe you could speak a little bit more to it, but as far as I understand, you're not giving out like official degrees that you could then flash at your employer and other universities and things like that. Though we've chatted about that on this podcast, and I think it's becoming less and less important somehow. But yeah, maybe speak to that. Like, why is RBC has RBC taken that path, and what are the implications of that?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. So the state of Florida has actually given us authority to issue degrees. Like we give a certificate in theology, an associate's in theology, and a Bachelor of Arts in theology. We are able to do that as a institution of higher education. Accreditation in the United States, whether it's regional accreditation or national accreditation, really is trying to do two basic things for the student at the very least. One, it's trying to provide a means of funding, and in particular, federal funding. And the other, it's a means of potential transfer from one institution to the next. So if I graduate from University A, I have a network where I might be able to transfer to University B. Accreditation doesn't guarantee that, but it creates a ecosystem, a network where it makes it a little bit more feasible to do so. So we've attempted to answer the question of funding and transferability in very specific ways. Regarding funding, we do not take any federal funding. The reason for that is that we want to control our curriculum. We have a very specific mission. We are unique in the landscape of higher education. I don't think there are many colleges that provide a single degree as an undergraduate theological program. So that is unique, and we don't want to change that. So we know who we are, we know what we believe, and we know what we want to do. So we don't want to alter that in any way. So we refuse to take any federal funding. But we have a unique unique funding structure. Ligonier Ministries is our parent organization. Ligonier has been around for over 50 years. It is a faithful Christian parachurch organization, and we share a campus with Ligonier. We are a subsidiary of Ligonier, and we've got wonderful donors that love college students and love RBC and have been so helpful in helping us keep tuition down so that it's incredibly affordable to come to RBC. We don't want to strap our students with high student loan and student debt. So next year, for example, in the 24-25 academic year, tuition for the full year will be $9,600 US. So it's under $10,000. You can receive 1 year of education at RBC. And that's thanks to the remarkable support we have from our donor base at Ligonier Ministries. Then there's the issue of transferability. We have a wonderful network of colleges and seminaries that align with the vision of RBC and who are glad to receive our students. We also have agreements with several seminaries, places like Westminster Seminary, Southern Baptist Theological Seminary, Reformed Theological Seminary, Puritan Seminary, Greenville Seminary, Mid-America Seminary, RPTS, Reformed Presbyterian Seminary. Like we've got all these great seminaries in the States, at least, who have gladly received our students, as well as similar colleges and seminaries that are abroad, for example, in the UK. So what we do is we work individually with our students. If they want to go into graduate education or seminary education, we've been able to kind of pave a way for them to get there. And so we work with the individual student and the individual institution to help them graduate from RBC and go to the place where they want to go after here.
Oh yeah. Well, that seems very intentional and very well thought out, because a lot of times the accreditation comes with strings attached. And, you know, in funding, funding always comes with strings attached, especially from the government. So
that's right.
Yeah, that's great, especially for international students, knowing that those avenues there. So I guess to international students, being from Canada,
Yeah.
what about the online? I wanted to ask you about your online courses, and
Yes, okay,
that's something.
sure.
Is that something that follows the same structure as the on-campus learning, and like what can you tell me about that in terms of getting involved in that, and your also the size? Like, are you looking to limit the size of that program still?
No, it's great. Thank you. So let me speak directly to the online program and kind of how it's set up, and then let me come back to the issue of kind of international students in particular. So the online program is equivalent to our on-campus certificate in theology. So it is the same program, it's the same education, it's the same standard, the same outcomes, the same certificate. We offer that synchronously. So we do offer live recording of our certificate in theology classes. So online students are, as it were, in the classroom with our on-campus students. We have designated teaching assistants that provide academic support for the online students so that they're able to ask questions live and receive answers from the faculty if
wow.
they're able to attend a live session. Now, we also understand, especially with international students, they're not able to come to the live class. So we do provide recordings for our online students, but they still have to keep pace with our on-campus students in that you've got to complete the course within a normal semester, whether that's the fall semester or the spring semester. You're following the same schedule as our on-campus students. So those courses I mentioned earlier, hermeneutics, biblical theology, apologetics, church history, those are all offered online, and students literally from all over the world have taken those courses. So for international students who want an RBC education, they are able to do so through the Certificate in Theology program. In many ways, our certificate is our attempt to provide the kind of Christian education we would want every single Christian on the planet to take. And so in one sense, the sky is the limit. Right now, I think I mentioned earlier, we have about 150 students or so in that program. And if we continue to scale that, then we'll add additional support, but we still want to preserve the dynamics of the kind of live classroom session there. So that's the certificate online. It's a fantastic program, and it's been especially successful for students who can't come on campus. But some students have found out they like it so much online that they've inevitably transferred to the on-campus program, and that's a seamless transition to do that.
Wow, yeah, that's valuable. I like that. It would follow the course. That's it makes it yeah, it makes it meaningful to follow along with in-class students, and I mean it's motivating, I guess. Otherwise, it's something you may just shelf for forever and never complete. So
that's right. So there is pressure to kind of keep moving and not get behind. And so our teaching assistants as well really do support online students and keep them from slipping through the cracks as well. So we do try to pay attention to that. So we've got, as an international students all over the world online, and we also have international students on campus. Again, we have approval to welcome students on campus. If you're international and you want to come to RBC and experience residential undergraduate theological education, you've got to take the Bachelor of Theology program. So that's the 4-year program that's available to our international students. Right now, we've got students from Brazil, El Salvador, Hong Kong, Germany, Canada as well. We love our Canadian students and want more of them down here as well. So we would welcome you all with open arms.
Well, the teaching or the academic year is usually cold up here, so it's a good opportunity for people to go get some sun.
I tell folks from a cold weather climate, you do not have to shovel sunshine. It's a great thing.
Yeah, that's very accurate. So, so in Sanford, Florida, you're pretty much like you mentioned that you share a campus with Ligonier, but it sounds like there's a lot of other missions and missionary groups there. A bit of a hub for Reformed teaching.
That's right. Central Florida is a wonderful place to be. We're in the greater Orlando area. There are a lot of wonderful organizations. You can think of Rafiki, which does missions and Christian education, Wycliffe, Cru, Pioneer, Reformed Theological Seminary, Third Millennial Ministries. I mean, there's a lot happening in Central Florida, and there are a lot of great churches as well. We do require all of our students to actively participate in a local church. And so a lot of people enjoy coming to Orlando because of the great churches. We also have a budding career development program where we give our students soft skills. We also open up doors for things like internships and real life experience. And there are a lot of avenues to pursue, again, whatever kind of interest you have in Christian ministry.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I was going to ask, like, do a lot of the students then go on to be part of these ministries that are surrounding there? And I mean, there must be opportunities, yeah, for internships and getting involved. And I guess, like, for somebody who doesn't know what they're going to do, doing a gap year or something, and then, discovering that there is so much to do in this community or abroad, right? Then is that pretty common to see?
Yeah, that's right. So as I mentioned in passing, we have this program called a career development program. And depending on what program you're in, we provide a level of career support. So if you've got 1 year, 2 year, or 4 years at RBC, you're able to go through a series of assessments where we help you kind of identify skills and gifts and interests. We try to provide some opportunities for you to get exposure, some training, and some tangible transferable skills so that you are ready to either take a job or transfer into graduate education day after RBC. So one of the values of us being small is that we really can give you individualized care as you're thinking about life after RBC. So it's another reason why we have such a singular approach to what we do.
Right. Yeah, that makes definitely for value for a student to come out of school with some kind of a path. But yeah, I think we're running out of time a little bit, but I don't know how much time you have slotted for us here, but I wanted to ask you, I guess, one more question, and then maybe if we have time, another one.
Great.
I guess it kind of touches back to the beginning of the conversation. So why should a student, like, if you grow up in the church, what value is there in doing an undergrad in theology? Because a lot of times you go through your elementary school, high school years in a Christian school or even homeschooled, very much connected to the church. You go through some catechism classes or some confessional related courses or something like that are church run. And then coming out of that, it's a lot, like, it seems as if the world just kind of we just kind of throw people to the world, and there's not a whole lot of a link there. And I know Ligonier is doing a lot of stuff to do conferences and help with that with young people. But what kind of pitch could you give to the listeners to say, hey, like, this is something that you should be thinking about as as something to do in life, not just as a career kind of thing.
No, that's great. Thank you. What a wonderful question. I'm actually reminded of a quote, if I'm allowed to quote a Baptist here, Charles Spurgeon, the great Victorian London preacher, in his Treasury of David, where he's commenting on Psalm 78, which is very much a psalm concerned about handing down to the next generation the teaching of God's word. And Spurgeon says that the best education is an education in the best things, namely an education in, to now get to a Dutch Reformed Christian, an education in the wondrous works of God. The most important thing in life is to know God and to enjoy, as the Puritans would say then, the blessed life in God. So no matter what God has called you to do, the ultimate thing he's called you to is a life that knows him and loves him and worships him and serves him, and that we need students and ministers and faithful workers being faithful to that fundamental calling, no matter their vocation. So the knowledge of God is the most important thing in life. And so if that's true, a theological education is necessary for Christians, no matter what they do after, their undergraduate training. So whether it's in life or whether it's in ministry or whether it's in the marketplace, the knowledge of God is the most important thing in life.
Wow. I don't know if you could have a better answer than that. That's great. And people could think about that. And yeah, just to close really quick, I wanted to ask you about, every time I get a chance to chat with someone in the States, I always have to ask about the politics going on. So how is Florida? How has Ron DeSantis been for the school, I guess, for Christian education, for that environment?
Yeah, thank you. I'm a minister of the gospel. I'm not a politician here. Ron DeSantis, though, overall has been a good governor. He's been able to help preserve what might be considered conservative principles. And so we're able to do what we do here at RBC with great freedom. So we thank God for the liberties we have, not only in this country, but in this state in particular. And we're able to do what we do here at RBC without any concern or threat. And so much of that has been because of the good work of DeSantis. So I'm with everybody, already tired of politics, but also very interested in this next cycle, and pray that that righteousness would be upheld in this land of ours, and that we would have somebody in office who would uphold the righteousness that is described in places like Romans 13 as well. So Florida has been very good. We have wonderful freedoms. We've had some great governors, including Ron DeSantis, and we're all kind of interested in seeing what's going to happen next. But we're also kind of tired of old hats and old ways, and so I have no idea what's going to happen next.
Yeah, that's yeah, I don't think anyone has any idea, but it's something that I think a lot of Canadians keep an eye on, especially Florida, Texas, some of these states. It's just top of mind up here because of our government, and you never really know what's going to happen. Even planning one school year to the next is tough. So it's something that I'm always curious about how you guys are doing. So that's a good spot. You're in a good spot there in Florida. So hope God continues to bless you there.
I thank you, Tyler. I appreciate that. In our mission, we actually say that the purpose or the mission of RBC is to be faithful. Like, that is the goal. That was inspired from Charles Hodge when he was reflecting on like 50 years of his work at Princeton, and he kind of said in passing that he thought that there was nothing new or novel ever taught at Princeton, and that he sought to be faithful. In one sense, that's what we're trying to do. So whether we have a supportive government or an antagonistic government, we aim to be faithful in what God has called us to do here at RBC, so that if God would tarry and he would preserve this place for our children and grandchildren to 1,000 generations, there might still be an RBC that's faithful to the teaching of God's word. So I hope that will be a blessing as well to friends north of the border in Canada, that God would give us the blessing and resolve and strength to be faithful to his word in whatever charge he's given us.
Yeah, that's well summarized. Is there anything else you'd like to add? Otherwise,
it's just been a delight. If you all are interested in finding out more about RBC, you can certainly go to our website at reformationbiblecollege.org. Or if you'd like to talk to somebody at RBC, you can email admissions@reformationbiblecollege.org, and they would be more than happy to speak with anybody listening today. But Tyler, I'm grateful to God for you and for a new friendship, and certainly pray God's richest blessing on you in Jesus Christ as you continue to serve him through Real Talk.
Thank you. We appreciate your time, and all Lord's blessings on your work there at RBC. It's we'll link everything in the description of the episode, I guess, for how people can get in touch. And we appreciate your time and appreciate everyone listening. I think we're going to speak to Dr. Nichols, actually, who's who's your colleague and I guess the president of RBC, about some of the Ligonier sides of things. So they're actually coming up to Canada to do it.
We've got a conference coming near you.
So we should the back half of this episode, I think, is going to be that some details about that. So
good.
Again, appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And everyone for listening. Thank you for tuning in, and hope you learned a lot, and go check out RBC and the good work they're doing. Hey everybody, thanks again for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed that conversation with Dr. Tweeddale. We're now joined by Dr. Stephen Nichols, the president of Reformation Bible College. He's also the chief academic officer at Ligonier Ministries. He's also a teaching fellow at Ligonier, who will often appear at conferences, much like you will hear in this episode. Dr. Nichols earned his MA in philosophy from Westchester University, a master's in religion and theology from the Westminster Theological Seminary, and a PhD in apologetics from Westminster Seminary. Also has an honorary doctorate from Geneva College, so twice a doctor. And we're privileged to be able to speak with him today about Ligonier, the history of Ligonier, what Ligonier is doing currently around the world, and also some of their goals with conferences through the country, and more specifically, an event called Always Ready, a youth conference, which is a series that Ligonier puts on. We are privileged to have them coming up to Brantford, Ontario on March 20th. So go check that out. We'll link it in the show notes. You'll hear about this in our conversation. And Wednesday, March 20th, coming to Living Waters URC Church in Brantford, Ontario. Go check it out. Also, stay tuned to the end of the show. We will likely be giving away some tickets to this event. You can enter for your chance to win some free tickets. Definitely an event you won't want to miss. So hopefully you enjoy our conversation with Dr. Stephen Nichols. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. We have Dr. Nichols with us, president of Reformation Bible College. Appreciate you joining us to chat a little bit about Ligonier and your role over there. So, maybe you can start by giving us a bit of a history of what Ligonier is, where it's from. Some of our Canadian listeners may not be as familiar with those in the States. So maybe a little bit of history on Ligonier, and then what role do you play over there?
Yeah, great. Yes, it's good to be with you too, and glad to have this opportunity to talk about some of the things we're up to down here. We get this question from time to time: what's a Ligonier? Ligonier Ministries started in 1971 by R.C. Sproul, and it's called Ligonier because it started in the Ligonier Valley, which is about 40 miles outside of Pittsburgh. And there on what had been a 52-acre farm, R.C. Sproul and Vesta, his wife, started the Ligonier Valley Study Center. And it was a place where it was a little bit of a tumultuous time, 71. It was the war, it was sexual revolution, it was issues on college campuses. It was a bit of a crisis moment in American culture, and R.C. sensed it, and he wanted to serve both the church and the culture by saying, here's a place where you can come and get real answers. Like, these are difficult, crucial questions that are being asked, and there is a place where there are answers in God's revelation. And he wanted this study center primarily to equip Christians, primarily a discipleship training place. Well, soon it was audio cassette tapes that his teaching would be put on, and they were spread out. And then Ligonier was a bit of a pioneer in the video tape distribution. And in 1974, started distributing VHS tapes. They'd send these to churches.
Wow.
Churches had no idea what to do with them. So Ligonier would have to, they had a program where they would lease VHS players to churches so they could play the Ligonier tapes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
hilarious.
anyway, it is very funny. And so that went on for about a decade, from 74 to 84. And then it just became obvious that this was more of an international ministry with distributing materials. And it didn't make much sense stewardship-wise to maintain this massive 52-acre property. So Ligonier moved down to Central Florida, to the Orlando area in 1984, and just continue to produce trusted discipleship resources in the service of the church. But these days, our reach, God's really blessed the ministry. We're reaching over 100 million people a year with our teaching through all sorts of platforms. And then we're also have a goal to be active in the world's top 20 languages, which they say that would cover roughly 90% of the world's population. So we're active right now in the 16 of those of the world's top 20 languages. So 4 more to go.
Wow, that's quite the blessing. That's quite the reach. I didn't know that. I also didn't know that that's where Ligonier came from.
Yeah,
the name. That's interesting. So it's kind of developed beyond being just a college or a center for learning, and kind of what's the goal of that? What's the goal of Ligonier in terms of distributing materials, conferences, these kind of things? Like, what really is the aim?
The aim is to put trusted Reformed teaching in front of people all over the world. So we recognize the value of the Reformed faith, and we know as we read Scripture and as we understand the doctrine of salvation that as Spurgeon would say, the Reformed faith is shorthand for the gospel. So we see this as the continuation of the historic Christian Orthodox faith. And really, at the center of being Reformed is not only the doctrines of grace, it's also the doctrine of God. And if you know anything about R.C. Sproul, you probably know about his book, Holiness of God, and then his other book, Chosen by God. And there we have God's holiness and God's sovereignty, and they're really at the core of who God is. And sadly, RC would say there are many, whether you're in the church or in the culture, you need to know who God is. And there are many who think they know who God is, but they don't know the God of the Bible. And so what we really aim to do is to teach and proclaim and defend the holiness of God to as many people as possible. That is our mission statement here at Ligonier. That's what drives us. And so we look at that broad reach, and we look at the multiple languages, and we need to be aware of this. I mean, God is doing remarkable things in all these countries we hear about where the church is persecuted, whether it's in Iran. There in Iran is one of the places where Christianity is growing the fastest. And then in India, and India, of course, has a variety of places to it, so different levels of persecution, variety of languages. 4 of those top 20 languages are Indian languages.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You know what?
And we're already in Hindi. But the church is growing. There's a tremendous, we've distributed, I can't remember the exact number now. I want to say close to 40,000 Reformation study Bibles across various countries in Africa.
Oh, wow.
Most of those have been directly given to pastors. Just this past week, we had a pastors conference and gave out 2,000 Bibles. A month or so ago, the Episcopalian Church in Uganda, which is very conservative, they've called out the Archbishop of Canterbury. A very, very conservative church. We distributed they had all their pastors come in for their conferences, and we distributed 5,000 Bibles to them.
Wow.
And the Anglican Church in Uganda, theologically conservative, is like 1.4 million members.
Wow.
So God is doing remarkable things in the church around the world, and we want to be there to provide resources. For most of these pastors in Africa, the Reformation Study Bible is their library.
Yeah, wow. It is a good resource, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's a great resource, but you think about it, like that's what they have.
Right, yeah. They just
to
don't
prepare their sermons from, to teach
Yeah.
from. So we just want to be there and serve the church at every age and stage and wherever it happens to be in the globe.
Wow, that's that's quite remarkable. I didn't know that had such a reach either. That's amazing. Do you put a lot of effort into reaching into these persecuted countries and things like that? And to I guess it's easier with online stuff, but probably dangerous as well.
Yeah, it's easy, so we have the little SD chips. So we have the
Right.
digital resources that are offline. And so when you're in the Muslim countries, that's really the only way you can access stuff.
Right.
Because of just the way, and even in China. So we do a lot of work in traditional Chinese.
Right.
And so we distribute, we're engaged in all kinds of ways to serve. In Iran, we just broadcast. So if you know anything about how the Middle East works, if you've seen pictures of these Middle East towns and cities, there's satellites everywhere. So the Middle East still primarily is satellite. And so we can be in Saudi Arabia and beam into Iran Farsi language teaching.
Really? Oh, that's interesting.
Great. Yeah.
Wow. That's just a lot to get into to know, I guess. But I mean, with an organization like that, I guess you attract people who want to help. So that's good. What a blessing. That's great. So how does Reformation Bible College fit in? And then I guess Ligonier works off of that campus or very near and
Yeah,
that's where
we
you
all
are.
share a campus here in Central Florida. And it's wonderful having the students here alongside of Ligonier and a ministry, and it just gives a great perspective to it. You know, the whole Saul has slain his thousands and David his tens of thousands. So if Ligonier deals in the millions, we deal in the dozens. We are intentionally small. We have designed a campus to hold about 200, 250 students, and we're just about there. We're probably an admission cycle or two away from our maximum. In many ways, RBC is the distillation of everything that Ligonier is about, and of discipleship, again, in the Reformed faith. And so our mission here is to simply be faithful in educating students in the historic Christian faith so that they know God, they serve God, and they worship God in all of life. So that's what we do specifically. We have a full 4-year degree, a bachelor's in theology, and we have an associate's degree, and we have a 1-year foundation year program. That isn't just the freshman year. We've cherry picked some of those key things. So a number of students will come here and do that program and then go pursue whatever their path is, nursing or engineering or whatever it may be. But having that solid foundation.
Yeah, it sounds like a good recruitment program for Ligonier too. I mean, being right there, it's like, hey, I could go work for this fantastic organization. So
we have somewhere at least a dozen, maybe closer to 15 students, graduates who are working for Ligonier.
Well, that's amazing.
And then, our foundation year program is also online, and we also have an audit feature. So if folks just want all the fun without the pain, they can just audit the class.
Oh, that's
we
cool.
have plenty of we have a lot of Canadians who audit our classes, and right now on campus, I believe we have 4 Canadians, and we have 2 coming this fall. So we love Canadians. The more the merrier.
Yes, we were chatting with Dr. Tweeddale, and he mentioned that. I said, well, it's a good place for people to go catch some sun in the winter months. So.
I will confess that when I'm teaching an online class, I tease my Canadians when it's February and it's 82 outside and sunny. So I do pick 100%. On them, but I should be a better person.
So Ligonier does I guess conferences all over the place, and then there's adult conferences, and specifically we wanted to chat with you about Always Ready in the youth conference. So what is Ligonier's goal with or what has, I mean, historically, what have they done with conferences, and what are the goals of those things? Not specifically youth, but kind of generally.
Yeah, so the conferences, we have our national conference, and then we have regional conferences. We've done a number up in Ontario. We plan to come back. So it's just, again, teaching to people. And the other goal of the conference is Ligonier is sort of a place where Reformed people come together. And, we'll have the Dutch Reformed Church, we'll have Presbyterians, we have those that are Baptists of London 1689 persuasion. And so that's a wonderful thing to recognize that we do have this variety within the Reformed faith, and it's great that we can come together. And, these days, I think more than ever, we just need encouragement, and we need to meet in person. And especially, if you're in a smaller church or you feel like you're just isolated, that can just be wind in your sails to gather with 1,000 believers, or at our national conference, 6,000 people. Wow. And sing hymns and get, good teaching and just interact with people. So our mission in these conferences is to teach. It's what we do, but it's also to encourage and just to remind people that we need each other and we're not alone. And as bleak and as discouraging as things can be in our present moment, this is the Church of Christ, and the gates of hell will not prevail, and Christ will build his church.
Yeah, there's something to, I guess everyone needs encouragement these days, even from a political standpoint. I remember seeing, political get-togethers or rallies or even just like, like March for Life we have here up here in Canada.
Yes.
Things like that, where you get together with so many people who believe what you believe, and it's so encouraging just to feel that communion, I guess. And yeah, I guess
It
that
is.
isn't one thing that Ligonier can bring to a reformed space, because yeah, a lot of people, even if they're homeschooled or something, it's easy to feel that you're all alone and
It
despair
is.
of all the
Right.
issues in the world. So it's
Yeah.
nice to get together and recognize that it's, it's more than just our little community that we might live in. So that's yeah, that's great. In terms of material, what do people what kind of these conferences kind of entail? You said they're teaching. Is there some interaction people can expect? What
Well,
what would you see?
yeah, we always do the Q&A sessions, which are pretty popular with the attendees. So folks submit questions and we handle as many as we can as the speakers. So that's where we try to make a lot of this applicational and connect to the people that are there. But when we move into the Always Ready conferences, which we'll get here to, there we have built into the program some actual discussion time, which
Okay.
has been really interesting to watch and see how beneficial that is for those who come to those conferences.
Right. So you've done work on that, I guess, the adult side and then the youth side. So
Yes.
what kind of a split do you have there? Is it more often one or the other, or is it pretty focused on both?
Well, we have, of course, we love having families at our conferences. So we have a lot of families at our conferences. I love meeting the young kids at our conferences. It's just great to see them there. But we have a conference specifically designed for youth, the 12 to 18, and that's the Always Ready. And, we're very excited about coming up your way here. Actually, very shortly, we'll be up there. I think it's the 19th of March of this month for an Always Ready. But these are aimed at teens, 12 to 18. And what we've realized, and everyone realizes this, they are in an entirely new world than the previous generations. And the pressures that are on them are immense. Teens have always had those sort of peer pressures when it comes to identity issues, or when it comes to just sort of, establishing their own sense of self and worldview. Just so many pressures. But these days, those pressures are just an overwhelming force. We want to get in front of these kids and say, these are hard questions you're getting, identity questions, gender and transgender and sexuality issues, but even issues of, is Jesus the only way? That sounds really mean of you. And how can you say people are going to hell? That's not very kind. And shouldn't we be nice to each other? And you're telling me my beliefs are wrong. And why should I trust the Bible? These are really hard questions. So we want to come alongside of them and spend a day and just sort of fortify them and say, there are answers to these questions. And not only are we going to give you some answers, but let's walk you through how we got to these answers so you can continue on this to have answers. So our topic's up, and we're going to start right off with, who is Jesus? And we're going to move into, can I trust the Bible? We've got one on who am I and identity issues. A wonderful session, I always enjoy listening to it, is just on social media and discipleship, and how do I live in this social media world, in the screen world. And we build in some discussion time for them. So they come in groups. We just had one this past weekend out in Monterey Bay, California. And I love the discussion time. I just sort of hover around groups and just sort of make my way around the room. And it's great to hear these kids, and they're taking notes. And then we also sing together at these. And now we're back to the encouragement, right? You mentioned
Right.
homeschool kids, or maybe a small Christian school, and you just feel isolated. And you're like, am I the only one? And it
Yeah.
can get really discouraging. And wow, this is kind of bleak. But then you come together with a packed church full of people like you, and
Yeah.
yeah. So I love the Always Readies. We do 6 or 7 of these a year. We always do one here on our campus in Sanford, and then we do them around the country. And this is our first international Always Ready coming up, so
Oh,
we're
wow.
very excited about it. Yes,
Well,
our very
Brantford
first
is a
one.
privileged place then. That's great.
We'll put up plaque or something.
Yeah.
It all started here.
Living Waters, the home of the first international always ready conference. That's great. I mean, obviously the like kids these days are getting tons of pressure from social media, and like, I mean, high school has always been a disastrous time for everybody. But I
It's
mean,
right.
I guess
Who wants to
especially
relive their
now
junior
with,
high years?
yeah, exactly. It's confusing. You're trying to figure out what you know, who you want to be basically.
Yeah.
But a lot of those issues don't need to be, yeah, gender identity and things of that nature. So they, yeah, I guess with social media and stuff, how do you guys kind of stay on top of that stuff? Like
Yeah.
it's hard to kind of get out in front of all these issues that kids are facing.
Yeah. So, we are very much, we use social media very much here to push that teaching out. But we also recognize that, and I think all of us need to recognize that these platforms are controlled by a very tight-knit minority group that is bent on making money, first of all.
Hmm.
So they're going to get money based on how many eyeballs they can keep on their little moment and sell advertising. And so they know they need to put what is ever provocative, the most provocative thing out there, and just keep giving us a steady diet. So, and these kids are targets of algorithms from the moment they get on their phone. Like, we just need to be aware of this. And so we've got to help them. Go back to Proverbs is just as applicable today, of wisdom and following the path of the wise and avoiding the path of the foolish. It's just, in our day, it was magazines, and it wasn't, and billboards that you might have, or TV commercials that you might have to avert your eyes from. Um, it is to the nth degree now,
Oh
different.
yeah.
It's a bombardment of that stuff.
Yep.
So first of all, I think we just want to, hey, we recognize this. We realize the pressure you're under, but here are some boundary markers to help you navigate this. So let's start with, you are in the image of God. Like, your worth is not based on how many likes you get on your social media pages. And we know that you're just going to have to maybe get that camera angle just exactly right, and you'll get a few more likes. And if you show just maybe perhaps a little bit more revealing of yourself, you'll get a few more likes. Like, that is not your identity. You're never going to find fulfillment in going down that path for your identity. Or even being mean. Like, social media has made us just angry. There's a lot of angry people out there,
Oh yeah.
and we can't hop out on social media and get angry all the time. That's
Yep.
not representing Christ either.
Hmm.
So just here are some basic things. Let's think about these things, that the main influencer in your life has to be God's word.
Yeah.
If you're spending hardly any time in it, and you're getting all your influence by these, and they're not necessarily your peers that are influencing you. These are algorithms that are influencing you,
Yeah.
and trained like a heat-seeking missile to get your attention. So those are some of the things we talked to him about.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that definitely hit the nail on the head, because it's something that older generations just don't, maybe they recognize, but don't want to admit.
Mm,
It seems
mm,
like, it's like,
yeah,
wow, there's no way an algorithm's really, it seems like a movie, like a dystopian movie, right? Like, there's no
exactly. It
way
does.
algorithms are after my kid, and my kid will just get lost in the crowd anyway, so who really cares? And don't
Yeah.
realize that an algorithm is, really targeting individuals and can do that to everybody. And so it's
Some of this got revealed a little bit. I don't know if got a lot of attention up in Canada, but it was a couple of weeks ago. The Congress here in the United States held hearings on social media and had Zuckerberg and the other CEOs of the major platforms, and the hearing room was full of parents who lost their kids to suicide because of depression and anxiety through
wow.
these social media things. And they're standing there holding up pictures. And sort of revealing moment came when one of the senators asked Mark Zuckerberg if he had ever apologized to these families who've lost their children to this. And he said no. And the senator said, well, you have an opportunity right now. They're behind you. Why don't you stand up and apologize? And just that, and who knows what effect that had on him. And I'm not trying to make any judgment here,
Right. Yeah.
but just the image of that says, okay, this is what we're dealing with. This is a pandemic. And you can, I think it 07, the iPhone was released, and you can chart the increase in teenage anxiety, suicide, and depression, and eating disorders, etc. You can chart an escalation of that from 07. Now, we have to be careful of cause and effect issues,
Right.
but
Yeah.
it's data that we should be paying attention to. And, just one more thing here. Christian kids are not immune to this. We can't just assume that because they're Christian, they are going to somehow escape all this stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, 100%. It's just something that is, I guess you have to figure it as you go. And I guess this is why Ligonier can be so important in this space, because it's something that you don't necessarily see in the moment, and you might see 5 years later. And I mean, it started out with Facebook, and how many likes can you get, and it was pretty obvious that wasn't overly helpful. And then it becomes evident how harmful that really is, and that spirals into, I mean, now my mind goes to Twitter, now X, like the anger thing that we chatted about. Like, it's just like, it's not reality, interestingly, but it becomes people's reality. And so, like, if you grow up believing that everyone's that angry all the time, and it's like, and there's been proof that, like, not even everybody on there is a person.
Exactly. Right. You're arguing with a bot. It's just crazy. Yeah. No, you're right. These things don't sort of stay static. They devolve pretty quickly. And but there's hope. We take our always ready from 1 Peter 3:15, and we need to always be ready to give an answer for the hope that is in us. And that first century context of 1 Peter was a hostile environment to the gospel, and a decadent culture, and a church on the margins. And Peter's saying, you need to be people of hope, and you need to be ready. So we also want to come alongside of them and remind them of that too.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, definitely a valuable thing. Should be a great conference. So looking forward to that. Hopefully everyone enjoys the Always Ready in Brantford, and encourage people to sign up. We'll link it all and post it all everywhere, where people can get tickets for that, and encourage people to check it out. And so I guess you'll be there along with Nathan Bingham.
I'll be there. Yeah, and Nathan Bingham, who's our vice president of ministry outreach, but he's our social media guru. And like I say, I always enjoy hearing him. He stays on top of these things. So yeah, we'd love to see you come to the conference, and look forward to being up there with you all.
Fantastic. Well, appreciate your time. Appreciate you giving us a little bit of a glimpse into it, and what we can expect there. And all the best with your work at Ligonier, and blessings for that organization. It seems like they're increasing partnerships in Canada too, which is great. We definitely
we're very thankful
for our US organizations and stuff. So it's good.
We're very, very thankful for these new opportunities that have been in the last couple of years. We do share a continent, after all, so we're in this together.
We pretty much share your continent, because we follow your politics more than ours, and your media more than ours, and so
I apologize.
Doing our bit up here.
It's been fun chatting, and grateful for y'all, and we're very mindful of our brothers and sisters across Canada, and we're just, however we can serve, we're happy to do it.
You bet. Well, thanks for your time. Appreciate it. All the best with your work, and we'll see you soon in Brantford.
Sounds great. Thanks.
Hey, everybody. Hope you enjoyed that conversation with Dr. Stephen Nichols. And as promised, we have 3 tickets that we're going to give away for this event, the Always Ready Conference in Brantford, Ontario at Living Waters, URC. So if you'd like a chance to win a ticket, go over to our social media, share the link for this episode, share the post, and then send us a DM or an email showing that you shared it. Get entered to win one of these 3 tickets. So again, go to our social media, share this post, share this episode with all your friends. We appreciate Ligonier giving us the opportunity for this little giveaway. And hope everybody enjoyed this episode, learning about Ligonier and Reformation Bible College. So keep having real talk. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Real Talk. We really appreciate you taking the time to listen or watch the show. If you want to send us your feedback, and we'd love to hear it, please email us at reformedrealtalk@gmail.com. If you want to find us online or social media, we got a lot of great content there. Just search Reformed Real Talk and we should come right up. This show is created and produced by myself, Lucas Holtfluer, and Tyler Vanderwood, and our wonderful podcast manager who does all the editing is Mariah Tamiga. So we're really thankful for her contribution to the show as well. That's all for now, folks. Thanks for watching or listening, and we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.